Hey guys, welcome back to my shop for another quarantine video. And I hope this is the last one that we'll have to do, and we'll be back face to face at the Paramount real soon. Today I'm going to talk about natural edge bowls. Definitely one of my favorite designs. First time I saw natural edge, the thought came to my mind of hands raised in praise to the wood gods. And I want to take you through the process of selecting a log, laying out for the best grain pattern, chainsaw tips, bandsaw, we'll go to the lathe, and I want to finish up with the way that I dry my products, and that is via microwave oven. So with that, we'll talk about design. What's important to me in the design is that it's well balanced. That the wings, the top wings are even on both sides, and that we're right on the pith. And what that will do is it will give you a nice oval on the bottom of the bowl, which I just delighted when I have achieved that. And you don't always get that. And I can give you the steps to ensure that you have a better chance of achieving that. So this is from a 10-inch log. I also like doing them on smaller logs. The smaller the log, the more elongated the appearance it has. It's still round, but it looks oval. So that's a smaller bowl with a foot on the bottom. I also like the deep V. This is a piece of mulberry that yet to be finished. But again, my goal was to have even wings and a nice oval center on the bottom. No base on that one, just a recess.
I'm working with a piece of 10-inch diameter black ash that was cut at the end of February. The advantage of trees that are cut during its dormant cycle, during the winter months, allows it to have the greatest possibility of retaining that bark on your natural edge.
So in the next part of our planning stage, I want to find the best vertical cut. Ruler I have here is a self-centering ruler with 0 in the middle with increments building out from there in both directions. So I'm going to put the 0 point on the pith, and I'm going to read my distance to the edge of the sapwood. I'm at about 4 5/8 on both sides. So I'm going to draw a line across that point. I'm also going to mark a little bit of the edge here on top of the barks so that when I roll this over, I'll be able to see that mark from the other side. So I'm using a combination square that has a level in it. And I'm going to set this on the line I just drew, and I'll rotate the log until I have a bubble in the middle. Has nothing to do with it being level, it's just something that I can repeat when I move to the other side. So now I'll go to the other side, find the center of the pith, using my combination square, getting my level, my bubble on level. I should be consistent with the other side. So I'll draw a line there with a little bit on the sapwood, or on the bark, I mean. All right. So now I can use a straight edge and draw a line between the two marks. So that's where I want to split the log. You can see that I hit the pith almost perfectly right down the middle. So we've got our log cut the length. We went with 10 inches plus 2 inches for a little extra. We've cut it in half, balancing between the pith on both sides. Cut it down, cut it in half on the pith. Next thing I'm going to do is look at the wood, see how my bark looks like. I'm going to attempt to have this a bark on natural edge. And I've got some tooth marks, that's the teeth of the chainsaw that helps bite into the wood while you're making your cut. So by giving me those extra 2 inches, I've got that extra to play with. I've got a 10-inch round piece of cardboard that I cut out, and I will put that on my wood. I'm going to use my combination square again with the flat plane of the bandsaw table. I'll push that over that way. I'll check it on this side. A little bit shy. I'm going to split the difference and come back about 1/8 of an inch here. And that's where I'm going to attach my cardboard disc. So with my disc attached, I'm going to cut the circle out. Not trying to get a perfect circle. I want to stay away from the cardboard so I don't damage it or gouge it, so I can use it multiple times. So we'll go ahead and cut that out. For my next step, I'm going to be drilling a Forstner bit, taking a Forstner bit, drilling through the bark and through into the, not necessarily going through the sapwood, but know that I'm into good solid wood. Get through that cambrium layer just below the bark, where my 4-prong drive center will surely spin out. So I'm marking, I still have my screw hole. I want to align the bit of the Forstner bit right on that screw hole and take it down a bit. I'm going to be using the one-way insert for the one-way chuck for my 4-prong drive. I want to line the center of the spur into the center where the Forstner bit was, and I'm going to bring my tailstock up right on that pith line. What I'm going to do is use my tool rest as my standard. I'm setting that right at the edge of the bark. I'll rotate that around, and I'm just a little bit off. I need to go in that way to balance that out so that the two tips match. I'll loosen up my tailstock, give me a little movement along that pith line, and I'll check it again, and I'm right on. So I've got my tool rest set to about 45 degrees to the corner of the wood. I'm going to turn that about 800 RPMs. I'm using a 5/8 bowl gouge. The reason for a larger bowl gouge is that it has nothing to do with the removal of more material. It has to do with how far you can extend that tool over the rest safely. A 1/2-inch bowl gouge you can extend about 2.5 inches. A 5/8 you can go to about 3.5 inches. So it gives me more time to take wood away without stopping to move the tool rest. So I'm not going to bother facing or making this perfectly round. There's no need. I'm going to be taking all that away. I'm going to be cutting at a 45-degree angle and continue up till I get to my point and to about the size, the diameter that I want to do my tenant for turning it around to do the inside. So I'll just keep working away at this. Well, I'll readjust the tool rest. I'm just about to where I want to be. You can see how balanced I got it. I got about the same amount of flat area on both sides. I'm at about 3 inches, 3.5 inches down here. I want to get that down to about 2 inches. So I'm real close to taking that edge off. At this point, I'm going to go the opposite direction. I'm going to pull onto the wood rather than continue to push in the proper direction going uphill. I'm going to go the other way just because I don't want to take a chance of blowing that bark off there. All right, I'm real close. I'm going to change the position of my tool rest. So now I'm going to switch over to my 1/2 inch gouge so that I can get in there and create a nice tenon to reverse this. So I turn my bowl around using the 4-jaw. I'll clamp onto that tenon. As long as my tool rest is here and my live center is still there, I'm using that as just a little holding power, a little insurance that I'm getting the jaws of those chucks nice and tight to the bottom of the wood. So again, I'm going to start out with my 5/8 bowl gouge and start taking some of the material away from the center, working my way out, and then I'll switch to my 1/2 inch bowl gouge to do the final cuts. All right, so I've readjusted my tool rest. I've changed to my 1/2 inch bowl gouge. What I will be doing is starting way over to the side and coming into the cut. What I don't want to do is just plow into that and blow the bark off. So what I'm trying to do here is to show with the camera what I'm seeing as I'm shaping the bowl. What I want to do is, as this bowl comes around, I've got wood, I'm cutting wood, I'm cutting air, I'm cutting air, I'm cutting wood, I'm cutting air, I'm cutting air, I'm cutting wood. As that's spinning around, all I see is a blur, but I can see through it, through the voids. And what I'm going to be doing is sighting down the outside wall and looking at my cutting edge on the inside wall to try to maintain a nice uniform wall thickness, and we'll see how that works. I'll come in and get a bevel rub, and again I'm hitting wood, I'm hitting air. I'm coming in, I'm looking down that sight line. And as I look down there, I can see a nice uniform wall thickness. And I'll continue to do that. I'll take more wood out of the middle of the bowl and do the same thing until I get to the bottom. All right, so I'm down to the bottom. I've got about a 3/8 wall thickness all the way down, uniform. I do not twice turn natural edge bowls. I turn them green and to the finish size on the first round. I know that at about a 3/8 to 1/4 inch, I will likely not see any cracking, but what I will see is a little bit of distortion that just adds to the beauty of the natural edge. I think I'm going to achieve what I sought to achieve with the measuring from the pith out. What I'm looking for is when I get to the bottom, I've got a nice oval grain pattern in the bottom. So I'm about at the final stage of the lathe work on this bowl. I personally don't fool with jam chucks, putting wood blocks in or anything like that. I go wood directly to the jaws. This bowl is wet, so I'm not going to do any sanding to it until it's dry. Personally, I seldom sand on the lathe. I just don't like it. I feel like I get a very uneven sanding. Most all of my sanding is done off the lathe in my lap with either a sanding pads on a drill or handheld sandpaper. So just using the jaws as my jam chuck, I will bring my live center up, lock it in place, go back to where I was when I started out this process in the same mark that it was, snug it up on there, and I will turn that tenon down to just a small little nubbin. So this bowl won't have a foot. It'll have a little depression on the bottom to help it sit flat on the table. That also, putting that recess in there, one of the final things I will do after the bowl is dry is I'll put a piece of sandpaper down on a flat surface, put the bowl on top and move it around to make sure that any distortion, any warpage during drying process will result in flattening that out so it sits nice on a table and doesn't rock. All right, we're done turning our bowl. I've taken the nubbin off. What I typically use is a side cutter that I will go in, not tight to the bottom of the bowl, but a little off the bowl, orienting the bowl with the grain up and down, and come in and just nip that little nubbin off. The next step that I will do is take a carving gouge that I will just kind of pare the rest of that remaining nubbin down. Tip on that is you don't want to take the gouge with the grain in the direction of the grain. Very good chance that the grain can catch and take a big tear out. Good process is to just go at about a 45-degree angle to the nubbin on both sides. You have far more control over the material removed, and just get that nubbin down to where it's flush. All right, talk about microwave drying. There's 3 things that you need to get started. A digital scale, an infrared thermometer, and Ziploc bags. I start out weighing my bowl and logging that number. So in this case, I'm starting out with a wet bowl at 11 ounces, 11.8 ounces. I'll put this bowl into a Ziploc bag and we'll go over to the microwave. So I've placed the bowl in a 1 gallon Ziploc storage bag. Kind of try to get most of the air out and seal the bag up. I'll go to my relic of a microwave, picked it up at a garage sale for $5 a few years ago. We'll just set it right in the middle. I've got a setting for defrost medium high. We'll go to defrost. I'm going to go to 10 minutes and then I'll start the microwave up. Now, I'm going to keep an eye on this the first time around. We want to be in the area and keep checking it periodically. Just don't want to walk away. So we'll let that go and we'll get back to you when we have a bag that's puffed up. All right, so the bowl's been in for about 8 minutes on defrost. You can see how the bag has puffed up. The condensation is already starting in the bag. I can take my infrared thermometer and point it at the bag. And I'm running at about 140 degrees. The optimum temperature is between 120 and 140 degrees based. What I'm going to do now is just leave this sit outside the oven and just let the bowl cool down. The bag will deflate. The water will, or the steam will begin to condensate on the bag, and that could take anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. So it's been about a half an hour since I've had the bowl out, and to show you, this is the first time around. That's how much water I'm getting off that first time. What I'll do is invert the bag, turn it inside out. I'll dry the bag off. I'll dry the inside with a paper towel, and I'll set that aside to finish air drying. Meanwhile, my bowl is cooled off and I'm ready to put it into a second bag, seal it up, and start the process over. So on my log, I'm going to put that the bowl went for 8 minutes. It was 140 degrees when I removed the bag. And I weighed the bowl. Right now it is at 9.8 from 11.3. So that's some significant weight that's come out of that bowl. And I will, so put that back in. This time I know that I'll, rather than setting my microwave at 10, I'll set it at 8 on defrost, put it in again and see how that goes. Do the same process. Take my infrared gun, see what the heat is after 8 minutes. My experience has been that it'll be cooler. Wood does not heat up in the microwave. It's the moisture within the wood that heats up. So each time the wood will be a little bit cooler, and it might take a little bit longer, but you need to try, you need to just experiment with that by keeping a close eye. All right, so I've been at this process for about 4 hours now. I've done 8 rotations through the microwave. I've dropped from, at 8 minutes, the bowl was at 11.8 ounces. The second rotation, I took another 8 ounces off of that bowl, and the temperature was holding at about 130 degrees. Next time, 10.5, so I lost another 0.5 ounces, and the temperature was at 120. So it's just good to keep track of that and see where you're at. So what I'm finding is my temperature is staying the same, or my time is staying the same, and I'm still getting, and my temperature is lowering as I go. Then I got down to at about the 6th and 7th rotation, and I went from 8.2 ounces to 8 ounces to 8 ounces. So that's telling me that the bowl is getting pretty dry. So at this point, I'm just going to put this bowl on the shelf, and it's about time to wrap it up for today, and I will come back tomorrow and feel comfortable that I can get this bowl sanded off and a stain on there. So that's all I got on that. I encourage you to go out and research microwave drying. It's very interesting. When I started doing this, which was about 11 years ago, I think it was 2010 was the St. Paul Symposium. At that time, I wasn't seeing a whole lot of information out there, and what information was more on a negative side, that the wood had started on fire and all sorts of things like that. If you check today, there's quite a long string on it on the AAW chat room on microwave drying. There's numerous articles out there, and one that I recently read was a doctoral thesis from a university in Switzerland. And what was interesting about that was it gives you all the data. It gives you images, thermal images. It compares wood that's microwave to wood that was conventionally kiln dried. And it was a very positive thing on microwave drying. What they say, it also proved that all wood is under great stress when it's growing. That stress has to be relieved. It doesn't matter if it's conventional drying, that being air drying, setting it on a shelf for 6 months to a year, or kiln drying or microwave drying. All that stress is all the same. The wood distorted the same amount no matter which way it was dried. So that was an interesting supportive information that I found too. So dig into it, see what you think. If you want to chat about it a little bit, or you want more information from me, I'll be happy to share that. So that wraps up our video for today. Thank you for the opportunity, and hopefully we'll see you face to face at the Paramount in a month or so.